The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Come to you from underneath a peach blossom. It's time for an episode of Be Awesome. Find positivity throughout your life and work. Just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.
Hello and welcome back, Be Awesome listeners, followers, viewers, fans. It has been a while. I just looked. It was March 31st was our last podcast here at the ECAT studios, and Adam has been hounding me to get back in here. And up until now, for the last 5 years, I've recorded one episode at a time, and just released them right away. And it's just been crazy. It's been a crazy 6 months, and we're going to record a number of episodes and release them timely while I'm traveling and doing things. So this is kind of a big day. I didn't realize that until this morning. My guest today has been on the podcast. He's a past guest, Mr. Mark Resnick. I had him on last year for his book, 10 Days with Dad. And this is kind of this is one of the most amazing friendships, bonds that I've been able to have in my life since I can remember. I met Mark. We were both in a private group hosted by Jesse Itzler called Build Your Life Resume. And it was a virtual group, 1,200 or so entrepreneurs, professionals, athletes, governors, all sorts of people. And Mark made a post about his book, 10 Days with Dad, which is a book around his story with regards to his father and his father having Alzheimer's and my father having dementia. I reached out to him. And we kind of went back and forth. I congratulated him on the book. I bought a copy of it. He does merchandise, said we should connect. That was in, April or May of 2022. And then in July, I'm listening to my friend David Cook's podcast, he's been a friend for 5 years. And he says, I'd like to welcome Mark Resnick on the podcast. And I said, hey man, I called him afterwards. Hey, Cooks, how do you know Mark Resnick? And he says, how do you know him? I said, I don't. I just want to. We've had emails. We've gone back and forth. And but I think there's a lot we could do together. I think he's a good guy. I don't even know him. He says, well, yeah, he's my brother-in-law. I was like, you got to be kidding me. This guy in Milwaukee, his brother-in-law is a guy in Walpole, that they've known each other for 20 plus years. I'm like, you got to make sure that we connect. And Mark may or may not know this, but I reached out to him and we sat down at Panera Bread a year ago today. It was September 8th, 2022. We sat down for 3 hours at Panera Bread, talked about life, talked about writing a book, talked about what we were going to do. And the last 365 days have been probably some of the wildest. Like, we could write a book about the 365 days. And we won't even talk about Comic-Con 2022 because that's a book all in itself. But this is our 1 year friendversary, I think is what they call it on social media. So welcome back, my friend. And what a wonderful year and an honor it's been for the last 365 days.
Yeah, no, Josh, the honor is all mine. Crazy that it was a year ago. I mean, the year flew by.
I woke up this morning and I was like, when the heck was it that we met in Panera Bread? And I went at my phone, thank God for iPhone, looked at the history of the picture of you and me taking a picture together. That I made the LinkedIn post and it said September 8th. And I'm like, that's today. And we made this plan. We were originally supposed to do this podcast a month ago. But I finally got COVID and that gave me the red light. I got to hide out for 5 days and it was like a mini vacation. I just, Amy and I were talking about last night. I'm like, got 3 squares a day. You brought me coffee. I stayed in my grandmother's apartment. She's been passed for a year. She passed away almost a year ago. She still got cable and I don't. So I watched Maury Povich and Jerry Springer and got caught up on work and couldn't do these podcasts. So, I mean, it's like timing of everything, right? So what are the chances?
Yeah, this is such a Josh moment in the sense that everything about you is there's a story or a connection or a timing.
Yeah.
There's a date connection always.
Yeah.
A year ago this, or 3 years ago this, or it's crazy, the separation.
Yeah, but and some of it comes like really easy. Like some of it you just like, bang, you remember. It's just memorable times. And then others, it's just like this morning, it just hit my brain. I'm like, how long was it that we were at Panera Bread and like just kind of broke bread for the first time? pun intended. And I was like, wow, it was a year ago. And if we had the podcast and I didn't get sick and all that stuff happened, it just would have been another day. Right. And now it will go down in history. We recorded on this podcast. We've known each other formally in person for a year.
Yep.
So
crazy.
And what a year it's been. And
yeah, for both of us, it's been, I think since that year, we've been nonstop. I mean, you're always nonstop, but I mean, literally, it's been nonstop for the two of us for the past year.
Your family's like, what are you doing with this guy? He's nuts. Like just randomly pulling in your driveway, getting a box of something and leaving.
Yeah, Colleen sees you on the Ring doorbell. There's a guy with a beard at the door. Yeah. Oh, that's Josh. Yeah. Oh, that's Josh.
He's fishing through all the packages on the steps, trying to see if any of them are his.
Yeah. No, my kids don't know who you are, but they know Josh. They know the name Josh. Everyone does.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's it. We'll get into the book, but you have been a blessing, which is part of the title of your book, which is, last October or so, for the last 5 years, for the first 4 years, I didn't want to be in the merchandise business. I didn't want to be in merchandise sales, but people love the shirts. They love the swag. They love they love the logo, right? And it's great. And I pinch myself. I always say that it was always funny the first time I saw someone that I didn't know wearing one of my shirts. It was in O'Hare Airport. And I'm walking by and I'm like, guy's wearing one of my shirts. And like, I didn't know who he was. And I was like, does that really happen? And, last October, you took that over for me, and it's been a blessing for me because you're like, you're not good at this. Like I offer, I want to come.
I don't think I said that.
Yeah, no, you did. Not those exact words, but I took it as that, and I'm okay with it. It would be, I'd call Mark and be like, can I come over and fold the shirts? Can I come over and bag the shirts? Because, there's a pride to that too, right? And I like handwriting the cards. I mean, a lot of times people like the shirts, like the cards that I would send more than the shirts, but I still, still try to send cards whenever I can. But you've taken over that responsibility and that ownership of that, along with your day job, along with writing this book, which is what we're going to get into, which is amazing. Second book. Mm-hmm. So you got 10 Days with Dad. It's been out for a year and a half. That's your personal story. You took it a whole nother step further by casting a wider net with more people with the greatest burden, the greatest blessing. So where did it come from? What's it about? And we're going to have to give my mom a shameless plug at some point in the book. We're going to have to talk about her a little bit too. So
yeah, we can give Anna the shameless plug right away because she's awesome. Yeah, I had never intended to write a second book so quickly, honestly. I wanted to promote 10 Days with Dad for like 2 years. Mm-hmm. That was the plan. And then I met you, and it's like, I want to write a book. So I was like, all right, Josh is on the calendar to write a book. And then these two guys, 6 months after 10 Days with Dad, two of my friends, or one friend and one stranger, had this idea about sharing their caregiving stories. And they asked me to consult. I was just a consultant, helping them out. And after 2 meetings, they were like, we need you to be part of this project.
Yeah.
So that's how it came about. These two gentlemen, my co-authors, Alan Rubel and Michael Tenalia, they had the idea about sharing caregiving stories from all the different perspectives, not just cancer. They both had caregivers for people with cancer. And it was a blessing for them to be able to invite me into the project. And honestly, it was amazing. It wasn't planned at all.
Yeah.
And then it just became my life. I felt a little bit bad for my first child, 10 Days with Dad, because that got a little bit of put on the back end. But honestly, it's just a natural continuation, taking my caregiving experience. And then this book, there's 45 different caregivers who share their stories, including Anna.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible. They're so powerful from cancer, Alzheimer's, Lou Gehrig's disease. We have brain aneurysms, spinal cord injuries.
Yeah. I
mean, we cover 15 different topics, mental health and PTSD. So it's great. It's been awesome. Really happy.
Yeah. The book can be read by anyone in the world because everyone in the world will either be a caregiver or receive service from a caregiver. Right. There's just those two things really. I mean, other than people that are going to pass away, really unexpectedly, for most people that are going to live, a life that they're going to encounter some experience, and it could be experiences that the young parents with their kids, right? They're going to have to take care of their kids might have some difficulties and challenges that require their parents to be there for them for their entire life. And in watching that with my mother, taking care of my grandmother for the better part of my grandmother's last 20 years. I mean, my grandmother was driving legally, I think, until she was like 85 or 87. And then I let her drive once or twice to Dunkin' Donuts, unapproved. Now that she's gone, no one's going to come after her for it. But that's one of those great things that you don't realize when you lose it. You know, when you lose that freedom.
Oh, absolutely.
It doesn't matter how old you are. And she was really upset. And so I'd call her and say, hey, I want to go get coffee. And I'd put her in the driver's seat. And she'd say, why is the yellow line moving? And I'm like, it's not, you are. So I'd like, pull over. I'll take it from here. I'll take it from here, lady. But, but my mother, I mean, if she was 87, my grandmother made it to just 5 days shy of 100 13 years my mother gave of her life. To have a day job, to have family and everything else, but also, take care of Lola for that length of time. And I watched it, and I admired it greatly. I was just like, I don't know that I could do it. It takes a lot.
Yeah, I think that's the whole point of the book is that you're kind of called to serve one way or another by choice or by circumstance, and nobody wants to take that burden on.
Right.
And sometimes you just don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Or your default, you're an only child, right?
Yep.
Kind of.
Yeah.
That's a whole other podcast. But yeah, with my story, it's relatable in the sense that 10 Days with Dad, because it's, people can relate to the nostalgia of growing up in the suburbs or anywhere really. With the freedoms were so different back then. Yeah. Nothing was scheduled or controlled like it is today. And then, my dad's story, Alzheimer's, is not, it's not like cancer where somebody who has Alzheimer's, but it's becoming that way.
Right.
And then the last part of the book is obviously it's motivational, just like don't wait for a tragedy to strike to change your life. But with the greatest burden, it's like everyone can relate to it.
Right.
Like you were a caregiver for Lola.
Yeah.
You weren't the direct frontline caregiver.
I was the entertainment.
But you were 100% a caregiver. And I think that's also part of the point is that no matter how big your role is or small, you're still a caregiver. And what you do matters every single day. And it still impacts both you and the recipient.
Yeah. And, I don't know. And I haven't read your book yet. I just got my copy. I'm looking forward to it. I've saw a couple of excerpts, and I got I see my good friend Aaron Ralston put a plug on the back for it. So
so happy
you get some good folks that are behind it. So I'm looking forward to reading it. One of the things that's interesting that you say that I think we're learning more about is that we're not in this, like when you kind of gave me some plug on that about that I was not a direct caregiver but part of caregiver is that sense of community with caregiving. That people look out, and when you said that about me, I'm like, man, there were so many people that were there for my grandmother when she needed it, right? And that was huge. I mean, my mother was primary, and she sacrificed a lot, and but there were a lot of people that were in that camp that helped her out. I'm sure there's some people in here that didn't have a camp that were sole caregivers that are just doing it all, and that's huge. Because we're only here once that I know of. From what I understand, I haven't talked. Nobody that's died has come back and been like, "Hey, there's something else for you here after this." It's exciting. Like what we know is what we have, which is here, right? The here and now. And for you to be willing to just step up and sacrifice everything for someone else, that's massive, right? That's huge.
Yeah, and this really complements a lot of what your mission is about in the Be Awesome program, because you don't know the backstory of every person you encounter. Yeah. In the airport, coffee line, at work. Like you don't know what kind of stuff they're dealing with, right? So if they're having a bad day, maybe they're taking care of their Lola. Right. And they've been grinding for 13 years doing stuff you never would have imagined that you had to do to take care of somebody. Yeah. And you just don't know that. So they're having a bad day and you're like, what's up with Josh? He's cranky today. Yeah. Well, maybe it's because he hasn't slept in 3 weeks or 3 years, Yeah. Because he's caregiving for somebody. So that, and also I would say the thing about the book that we want to highlight is that what about the caregiver? Yeah. Like who's caring for the caregiver? Right. Because most of the time they're doing way too much by themselves. They're not asking for help enough. Yep. And they're suffering mentally and physically and emotionally. So we're trying to aim the spotlight on the caregiver so people understand what they're going through
Yeah.
on a daily basis.
Yeah. No, that's interesting that you say that. And one of the other chapters in the book is Marissa Boydie, who was a past guest, and she's always amazed me at the selflessness, and I don't know if it's in the book. I'm guessing it is, but you know, her daughter was diagnosed with SMA, spinal muscular atrophy, which I don't know the percentage, but it's an
Small.
extremely high percentage of kids that get it. It's something that kids get, and they don't make it to 2. They don't
right.
live
The
past
survival
2.
rate
Right.
is-
The
yeah,
survival rate is very low, and Natalia she's beat all odds, and she's done amazing. And I had Marissa on the podcast originally. I think it was 2019, and I think Natalia was 2 or 3. And she had just gotten they just came out with the world's most expensive medication for SMA.
Wow.
And and she was a candidate for it. And there was a whole bunch of things that were focused, like, that should have, like, just didn't. Marissa didn't just focus on Natalia. Her focus was on all with SMA. Like, she raised like hundreds of thousands of dollars over the first couple of years in fundraisers, not for her family, which the financial burden had to have been enormous, but for the whole greater good of hopefully finding a cure or a resolve for kids to be able to live long lives with the disease. And as you were saying that, I'm just sitting there going, that's amazing. Like that you're doing that, because there is a lot of that back end acknowledgement that people might not see, and is like, wow, her family really stepped up and did a lot, not just for herself, but for others. We've got a family in town. I think one of the family members has cystic fibrosis, and the family has a yard sale every year for raising money for cystic fibrosis awareness. And people are like, oh, that's great. But I never hear people talk about like that family directly. They talk about the person that has the disease. They talk about the way that's raised, but not the.
Yeah.
And that's kind of neat that you're doing that, and you're putting that spotlight, because I think it's important. It is. Yeah. It's something that's needed. So. So you guys wrote the book, you put it together, you've launched. We were going to have this on the launch date, so you're a month in.
Yep. And
how are book sales?
Book sales are great. We actually, I don't think I'm a genius here, but on my first book, I created this concept of book sponsors. Right? There's a lot of cost that goes into writing a book.
Huge, yeah.
You know, the editing alone and the formatting, and it's thousands of dollars to write a book, and most people don't sell more than a couple hundred books to friends and family. So I came up with the idea of having book sponsors and just helping me cover some of those costs, upfront costs, and to also help promote the book. Yeah. So we had an incredible amount of sponsors for the Greatest Burden book, and that led to, I don't know, 700 or 800 pre-sales. Mm-hmm. So sales were off the chart before we even started. Yeah. And now that we're on, it's fully on Amazon on our website. It's going very, very well. But I think also launching in August was a little tricky too. We expect to, ramp up
holidays.
This isn't like a 1 month book launch anymore. When you launch a book, it's like a year or 2 years of just promoting it constantly, everything you do. So summer's over. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of slumberness that goes into people getting their emails and checking Facebook as regularly. So we expect a really busy fall with sales. Yeah,
weather's going to get cold. People are going to want to build fires and read by the fire, and this is a good read. And the holidays are coming, and that your book sponsors, which another small world, David Howe, Dorenzo, I think, is one of the book sponsors.
Yeah, 10 Days with
Dead. David Howe, I know.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I saw that, and I was like, oh, there's another Easton guy. There's all these lines, lines of separation and all that stuff. So, that's, as you're talking, and you're talking about, the most people only sell a couple hundred books. I'll never forget sitting down with you in the first 2 minutes. You're like, why do you want to write a book? Right? Remember that? You're like,
I do. Absolutely.
It was like, barely know you. This is the weirdest introduction, oddest connection of the stars and the moon and the planets. And I'm sitting here with you nervous because, you're an accomplished author. You've got all this stuff going on, and I want to pick your brain. And now, mind you, Be Awesome was started to write a book. And the renditions of how the book is going to be written and what it's going to be written about and how we're going to do it, it's been changed about 100 times. And there's been very little pen to paper. But I sat down with you and I didn't have a single answer of anything. But you're like, why do you want to write a book? And I just looked at you and I was like, I just want to give people something more after I'm done with my talks, because I go around and I do these keynotes and it's like, it's an hour, 90 minutes. And then people are like, oh, you know, I want to learn more. I want to know more. I want other examples, or I want other stories, or I want other stuff. And I want to give them something. He's like, and you just looked at me like, good. Because if you said you want to make money, I was going to leave. And that broke the ice.
Yeah.
And it dialed in that we were on the same page, you know. And then I started going into Mrs. Singleton stories and all these other things, right? And that was just really cool, because it was, you don't do this for the money. Like, a lot of people write books for the money. Like, you wrote 10 Days with Dad. Most of the time when people write books, they, you know, from a speaker standpoint, if I write a book, you know, my value that I can charge people if I want goes up exponentially. So I wrote a book, and I can say I'm a bestseller book because I can put bestseller of Amazon for 43 seconds. Doesn't matter. There's 43 seconds. Right. It was just that. And there's lots of people that do that. And I think that being on the same page about that. And I thought that was just so amazing, because I'm sitting here saying, there's probably a lot of people that write books about, you know, dealing with disease and things with their parents and family and friends that say, I want to make money off of this. Right. Yeah. And you write your books, and you're part of these things just so that people have something to learn from. And going back to 10 Days with Dad, I just spoke to an audience of probably 1,200 people in Florida last month. And I talked about Alzheimer's and dementia. And I said, look, anybody that's dealing with a family member that's got Alzheimer's or dementia, I'm sorry, because you didn't understand or learn about it until it was too late. Yeah.
That's the truth. Yeah.
You don't learn about that disease. No one's like cancer. We all know about, right?
Yeah. Oh,
like,
absolutely.
We all know about cancer. We all know about a lot of these, I don't want to say common diseases, but a lot of these talked about diseases, what happens, diagnosis, predictability of your survival and everything else. Nobody sits down and talks to someone and says, okay, there's a high likelihood that someday someone that you love, and chances are this happens to older people, someday you're going to wake up to a family member that you know, love, care, respect, and think the world of. And they're going to look back at you and not know your name.
Yep. Yeah. It's sadly enough, it's not just old people. One of my very good friends is 5 years older than me, and he's got early onset dementia. And he's fine. He's driving, but the path has been, kind of cleared for him, and that's scary. Yeah. You know, it's just, you don't expect that in the 50s or 60s. But yeah, it's dementia and Alzheimer's. I think that's just obviously going to explode. It's just, now I know so many people have been afflicted by it, and it's crazy.
I think it's once you put, like, that's something that people tell me, Paul Anastasi, who's on my other podcast, he was saying yesterday, it's like, you put stuff out there, you put so much stuff out there that all of a sudden you start seeing more. It's kind of like when you want to buy a car, right? This is that. Yeah. You're like, hey, I'm going to buy a car, right? I never thought about owning a Ram pickup truck, right? I've Ford since 1986, and my friends down at Bourne's, I called him. I said my truck my F-150 needed work, and I said, "Hey, you got any Ford F-150s?" He says, "Oh yeah, come down and take this for a test drive." And all there was this Ram 1500. I said, "I'm not buying this Ram 1500," and I get it. I never even noticed them on the road, right? Yeah. And as I'm driving to the dealership, all I see is Ram 1500. Oh, it's on the road, isn't it? It works like that. Like,
it totally works.
It just happens, and so. I think you writing that book and us meeting one another, me having the difficulties and challenges that I have, and my grandmother had she had dementia, and my grandfather had dementia. So I learned about it. I learned about it somewhat in my 20s. I learned a lot about it in my late 30s and 40s, and now I don't want to know anything about it. Now it's like you don't, like, if you go your life and not know anything about it, you don't go through that, and and it's hard. And dementia's hard because dementia, they kind of know stuff. Like, I remember my grandfather, I drove him we're going off to that top of the book. I hope you don't mind, but
No, not at all.
I remember my grandfather worked at Brockton Tool, which is this. We were talking about. We're in the Shovel Town buildings in Easton. We're talking about the shovels. Well, the Morse automobile was also built in Easton, Massachusetts. There's only two left. There's one right down here at the Historical Society at the train station. My grandfather worked at this old brick building, which is actually where the Morse vehicle was originally built. It was turned into a company called Brockton Tool, where they made shoe molds. And my grandfather didn't know anything, didn't know anybody's name, didn't know anything. I'd break him out of his nursing home every once in a while and take him for a drive. And we're driving by one day and he goes, I work there. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know my name. You don't know where we are.
Yep.
You know, you're all this stuff. And all of a sudden we randomly drive by something. You go, I work here. And you had this 1 second.
Yeah. It's still in the vault.
Yeah.
Right. It's just not, they're not producing new memories for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And you just don't know if they're going to remember the combination that day.
Yeah.
It's not that day. It's that second.
Right.
Right. It's just
right.
the memory comes in literally in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And then it's back to nothingness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a sad disease.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. What are 2 or 3, back to the book, what were 2, did you have, like, you had to have had a couple of moments working with the different stories and the different people that you were like, wow. Like, did you have I mean, you must have had 100 wow moments, but what were like 1 or 2, like, just kind of like take your breath away, or I couldn't believe this, or what resilience, like what were a couple of, like I said, I have to say there's like this hundreds, but was there one that just like stuck out? Because I mean, you've got, you have Muhammad Ali's.
Yeah, Rashida Ali, Muhammad's daughter Rashida is one of the folks who wrote the foreword to the book, and she was awesome. There's 45 stories, and a bunch of people had stories who wanted to share their story, but they're not writers.
Right.
So I ended up writing with them probably 15 stories. That was tough. Yeah. It was tough, first of all, just listening to their story and not getting emotional, and then trying to write it in their language, in their words. It was really hard. It was a very different book writing than 10 Days with Dad. There's one story, though. Almost all the authors had some sort of a silver lining or a blessing or blessings that came out of their caregiving journey. But there's one woman, I didn't have to write her story, but she did not have a good relationship with her mother. Mm-hmm. Never. Just from very unhealthy, not a lot of love shared between them her entire life. Yeah. And then her mom got Parkinson's disease. And she still, I talked about answering the call to serve either by choice or by circumstance. And she chose to care for her mom, even though her mom, it was just a very cold relationship. It really screwed up her life in a lot of ways. And yet she still, to the very end, took care of her. And there's one part in the book where she's writing about, with Parkinson's, you kind of lose control of your bodily, function. So she couldn't really speak that well, and she couldn't eat that well. And she goes, Mo juice. And the woman's like, the caregiver's like, what? She's like, Mo juice. Mo Jew, she said. Mo Jew, not Mo juice. Mo Jew. Yeah. And she thought for the first time, and like literally forever, her mom was saying, I love you. Mm-hmm. And the woman goes, did you just say, I love you? And she goes, no. She goes, no, more Jew. Like more juice. And it just crushed her. She was like, oh my God, I'm finally going to get the recognition and the love that I thought I was going to get from my mom. And all she wanted was more juice, right to the very end. Yeah. There was no love or connection. And yet she still took care of her mom. Yeah. That to me that blew me away. Yeah. That's the only story in the book that didn't really have much silver lining. But to me, it's still, they're still our parents. Love, you're not going to have a perfect relationship with your mom. Yeah. But the fact that she took care of her to the very end was just touching. Yeah. Well, yeah. There's a lot of them though. I mean, that's a tough one. Cause I've got family that, given the circumstances and the volatility and the separation. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. If I don't know that I'd do that. And I don't know if that makes me a bad person or not. Like I'm saying this openly, but like, I don't know that, especially like that would crush me. That was like kind of like,
I look at, you know, yeah, that's
You
amazing.
Would. You would. I know you would.
Not everybody would. I know. I probably
you
would.
wouldn't.
I guess I'm hopeful that I'm not. I don't know that I want to be put in that position because it's like wow, like this person has hated me or treated me with hatred that's supposed to love me.
Yeah.
And now they need me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get and it's not about getting something, right? It's not about I always tell people when you do something to expect something, then you failed because you're not going to get it. Like none of us are thanked enough, right? None of us are recognized enough. None of us are acknowledged enough. None of us are told they're loved enough. It just doesn't happen. I don't do it enough. Right. I know I don't do it enough. I know that there's, I'm very lucky. I've got my family that lives close to me and everything else. Yeah. And you take that for granted.
Yeah.
I know that I don't say all the right things all the time. I know I don't do all the right things all the time, but I would hope that, given the opportunity, we're going to do a podcast, another episode, you're going to back to back and you're going to keep me in line with, procedure I just had done. That got me to thinking that, wow, I'm counting on people and I need to tell them I love them. And I did. And that was because I thought it wasn't just because I thought I was going to wake up from anesthesia. It was because it was a realization of wow, I probably don't say this enough.
Yeah.
But being put in that situation, of someone like that, that's pretty powerful that especially when you say, I would, for me, if it was me and flip side, I would have just said, she just told me she loved me and just leave it at that and then got more juice. I wouldn't say you told me you love me because then it's it's out there, but
she probably should have.
Yeah. Well, you get so excited. You get so my father that's got dementia, he's my stepfather. He's been part of my life since I was, I guess 7 or 8. And, he's only told me he's loved me twice. That's it.
Yeah.
Only told me he's loved me twice. And I've learned that I tell my kids I love them probably more than they want to hear it. And whether they say it back or not, I try to tell them, every day. I dropped my 16-year-old off this morning before this. And I'm like, I love you, buddy. I'm proud of you. And, because I don't know the day that I might not remember his name,
It matters. It really does. You look at people who had that childhood who didn't have not to be selfish, but with my parents, it wasn't that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't a lovey-dovey, they loved me. I know they loved me.
Yeah.
But they were just so, my dad was so busy trying to raise 3 boys by himself that he was exhausted all the time and just wasn't his way. But I think the thing with caregiving is, I guess the natural second edition or the follow-up, The Greatest Burden, This Greatest Blessing, was that for me personally, I think some people who go through the caregiving journey, they say, I'm going to change my life. This is crazy. I can't believe I didn't really know my father until I got sick.
Yeah.
I'm going to change my ways.
Yep.
And they do that for 3 months, 6 months, and then they kind of fade back to the way they were.
Yeah.
Or there's someone like me who says, screw it. I literally changed my life. Mm-hmm. I'm a different person pre-diagnosis and post.
Yeah.
Whether it's the meditation, whether it's the coaching, whether it's just the way it's my outlook, my priorities in life, my health, my focus on my sleeping, etc. It was a wake up call. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was a life changer. Yeah. So I think that's the thing with caregiving, right? It can change your life in ways that you never expected.
Yeah.
Whether it's as simple as I need to say I love you more to the people in my life because I do, and I want them to hear it.
Yeah.
Because life is so short.
Right.
It's so freaking short.
Well, that's right. And I tell people, and I'm a work in progress. I'm way not even close to down the road that you are in realization and understanding and, almost dying and all these things that I've had. I still trail off and go back to old ways of thinking I'm going to live forever. I'll get there tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow. But one of the things that I did do, with realization with my grandmother and my father's dementia and some other losses was realizing that when they're gone, the library's closed, whether they're still here, but mentally they're gone, the library's closed. And so I've been buying Storyworth subscriptions and I think it's $140. And what it is
again, stop. We need to get them on this. It's got to be a sponsorship opportunity here. Storyworth, I'm talking to you right now. Josh Peach is awesome.
Yeah.
He talks about you all the time,
Yeah.
unprompted.
Yeah, no, well, it is like it's
an incredible
It's
product.
a genius idea, but
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's happened because I told you about them a year ago, and you knew about them, but I told you about what I did. The year of COVID, 2020, the Christmas of COVID, 2021. I hadn't seen my mother and grandmother live next door to me, and I spent zero time. I hadn't been in their house for over a year. I hadn't been in their house since it was Christmas of 2020. I'm sorry, I hadn't been in their house since Christmas of 2019,
which is
basically.
wild.
Right, living next door, but so concerned that at that time everybody was dying. Right, everybody's going to die. You had COVID, you were dying, and so we literally hibernated for a better part of a year, and was trying to think of what we could do to do something good and everything else. And my dad has been, and he's still in a facility, but he was put in a facility in March of 2020. And it was really hard for me because there was so much that I wanted to ask him that I never did, that I always thought I'd have till tomorrow. So I bought my mother a Storyworth subscription, which what it is you pay a fee and they send a question every week, and they send you the question ahead of time. To you, to me, for approval. Like, is this something you'd like an answer to? So, like, one of them was, what was your first job? Now, I knew my mother's first job was at a supermarket in Brockton in 1973 or 74. I didn't know a lot of detail about it. I'm like, go ahead, go, write it up. And I did it for the first couple of weeks. And I'm like, you know what? Let them ask the questions, because they'll probably ask questions that I wouldn't ask. Like, I should be asking the questions that I want. It's 1 year, 52 weeks, and they're responsible for writing the answer. And then Storyworth makes a hardcover book, and you can actually buy copies of it. And about 6 months later, I bought one for Bob Bogardus, who was the guy, like, without me selling a cell phone to Bob Bogardus when I was 22 years old in Norwood, I would have never had the career path that I've been fortunate to have. He's just an amazing human. He's always been there for me throughout all this craziness of my life. So I bought him a subscription, and I paid the first year, and at the end of the year, the book's supposed to get published. Well, my mother is closing in on year 3.
No.
She keeps renewing the book because the book can be up to 300 pages. And she's paying herself. And Bob has renewed every year, and he's on year 2.5. Because they want to give more of their story. They want to have the whole story. And I was just blown away. Like, the first time that they renewed, I'm like, oh, maybe they weren't. Because I'm not looking. So
you assume they weren't done.
You can also see if they've responded. You can see. But what I want to do is I want to open the book up as if it's the first time I see it.
Yeah.
Like reading everybody's weekly stuff. Like, that's the one thing I'll tell Storyworth they shouldn't do, is give the provider or the recipient of the book the weekly updates. Yeah. I have the ability. Now I have a folder and I just keep them all there, because if the book ever gets published, because they keep renewing it, I at least have it. But I don't look at it because I want to open that book and I want to go, oh my God, this is amazing. But they're paying their own way to continue the story. Like, how cool is that?
That's
right?
Very cool.
And when it's done, it's going to be all of 300 pages, and it's going to be stuff that I didn't know. And it's going to be stuff that can go on for further generations. Yeah. It's like, I tell people, and I don't know the answer to this. This is my question that I pose to people. Who's your grandmother's grandmother's grandmother? What's their name and who are they?
No idea.
Should know that.
I have no idea.
Probably should know that. You should probably know some generational background going back. But we don't know that stuff. We got a bunch of black and white pictures. And, oh, that's your tia. That's your uncle. That's your this. That's your up. And it's like, I don't know them. And we don't have a story about them. And this Storyworth gives something that can be given through generations for people to keep and to have.
That's great.
And that's why, I gave my mother, she retired from school, and I was able to speak at her school, and I had our friend Chris Mills at Shoveltown Flag. You were there.
I was there.
Oh, you were there. That's right. That's why I forget how many times and places you've been. But so I had that flag made that was a half American flag and half Madeiran flag.
Yeah.
And I did that and told my mother, this is for you. And on the bottom of it, it's the day that our family migrated here, that we became Americans, right?
Yeah.
And that gave future generations opportunity. I told my mother, this is something that has to be left to the next generation, and for the next generation, and a conversation piece. And I want to put notes in the back.
Nice.
And names and things, so that people can that wood's over 150 years
Right.
old as it is. Our generation should last for
great.
that time. So we got off track
Yeah,
again,
no,
which is fine.
That's
But
the way to go.
that's-
Off track.
But telling stories and having them somewhere, and what you're providing is powerful, right? And if you have one person that opens up about living with a family member with Alzheimer's or dementia, or you have one person that reads the book as a caregiver and says, wow, what we are doing is really cool. And wow, we are, we're putting the spotlight more than we know, or than we see probably.
You don't see it.
Yeah,
you don't see it in real time.
That's just really cool.
Yeah.
So proud of you for all this stuff.
Thanks, bro.
And you hung out with me, and you put up with my brain, which is a very interesting place on a daily basis. I feel like we talk almost every day.
We do. In the past year, I've published 2 books.
Yeah.
I've spent a month in Europe, which we can talk about another time. Yeah. Pretty much by myself, which was crazy. I have ADHD and you have ADHD, but I feel like over the years, we've talked about this. Like I figured out how to control it, and it's not really, it's a good thing, and it's not really holding me back. But there's a lot of people in my life who have ADHD that I have to sort of like. I'm not saying I have to control you, but like we have to steer the conversation. Yeah. One of my co-authors has ADHD clearly, and I'm like I'm always having to steer him on the right conversation as well. So it's just. You know what? And I say this because you said I'm not trying to make money off these books, and I'm not. At some point in my life, I would love to flip the script and become a full-time writer and a part-time salesman. Yeah. Because I just enjoy it so much. Yeah. If I could find a way to make money off of writing full-time, I would do it because that's where my passion really lies. So where I was going, I forget where ADHD. I lost my thought. Squirrel.
Yeah. Shiny objects.
Yeah, shiny objects. But what I was trying to say, what I think I was going to say was like, it's just not too late. Yeah. It's not too late to flip the script. Yeah. And like we feel like, and I know you do, you feel like you're beholden to the person you were as a little boy or a teenager or a young adult. And like, that's such crap. Yeah. Like you can change your story at any time. You know what I mean? This is what I tell people in my talks about the book is, we're not obligated to be that person we were as an 8-year-old. Right. Or as an 18 or 48-year-old. Like, you don't have to be that guy. Yeah. You just don't. You don't have to be the Josh that people want you to be. You have to be the Josh that you want to be.
Right. Well, I think that's right. And I think that it's being the Josh that you want to be today. And like what you said about being beholden to who you were. And you should be proud of that, whatever that is. Right, as long as there's a better outcome today than there was yesterday, and it's kind of like you've sat in a couple of my keynotes where my first slide is like, "Hey, I'm a really smart guy. I got a lot of education. I successfully completed high school in just 5 years," and I buried that. Right, I buried that. I graduated high school in the '90s, and I wouldn't admit that to anybody. And I've got an actual college alumni chair. Yeah, from a college I never went to. With my name on it, right? And it's and the date
that bothered you.
The date of commencement is TBD, to be determined, right?
I bet you that bothered you though. That it took you 5 years for a long time
to graduate. Yeah, it took me.
No, I mean like you probably in your earlier life or years you were probably like, I'm a moron. Like I'm just. I mean, it was probably a negative.
I got a 660 on my SAT. Like they give you 500 points. I have no idea where they found the other 160. Like I think I took the test blindfolded. Like, and it's not that I didn't grasp, and I had fun in school. I had some challenges like anybody else.
No, you had ADHD,
and I did. I honestly did. Yeah, I'm sure I did.
I think if you had known about it back then and had like somebody kind of steering the ship.
Yeah, there was no such thing back then.
There was no such thing.
Yeah.
And so, and that's another thing, these neurodiverse things, they're real. Yeah. ADHD is a real thing. It's not the kid who's just acting up because he's a clown. Right. There are some of those too. But yeah. You didn't have that help though. You had nobody looking out for your ADHD. It's a game changer when you do. So I mean, again, but I know you don't beat yourself up over it, but
no, I did. For
you
a
did,
long time.
But you don't anymore.
No, I woke up. I woke up one day. It was another keynote speaker, Sam Glenn. He's out of He's in the Midwest. I think he's in Indiana. The guy's fascinating. He actually paints unbelievable paintings. I've got one of his paintings in my office. He painted an eagle. He the first time I saw him speak, he painted this eagle and said, sort of like an eagle, don't walk like a duck. Mm-hmm. But he talks about how he said to this audience, I sat in this keynote randomly in Oklahoma City. I think it was 2016. And I wasn't even supposed to be there. And I was sitting in the audience. I just walked by and I sat in the audience, and he just opens up with, I successfully completed college in just 5 years. And I'm like, well, I can one up that. It took me 5 years to graduate high school, so forget it. And I never made it through community college. And I thought about it. I'm like, why can't I talk about what I did or what I went through or all that stuff?
Yeah,
like he can. And I was like, there's nothing to stop me. And
right.
What it is, you're afraid of being judged, which goes right back to be who you want to be. Don't be who others want you to be. It's like Deion Sanders. I don't know if you saw his recent video where he's like,
no,
I don't care what you guys say about me. I've already done what I want to do, and I am who I am, and I like who I am. And there's nothing you can say to make me think otherwise. And I look at, even to me today, I'll occasionally look at stuff and be like, oh, these people are getting hated on by everybody. How do they do it? And it's like, they remove the noise.
Yeah.
And they're okay in their own skin, and they're comfortable with who they are. And that's pretty cool, because there's so few people that are.
Yeah.
And I think all the people in your book, I'd say that they're pretty comfortable in their skin. Not to go back to it, but as I'm thinking through my brain, I'm sitting here going, I bet all those people don't care what anybody have to say, because they're doing the right thing for the right reason, because they know it's right. Even the woman that had the mother that didn't say I love you, she's still she's comfortable. I bet it hurt, because I'm still wrapping my head around that and trying to think about if it was me and all that. And I'm sitting here going, I bet that woman still is comfortable with who she is, and she's who she wants to be, which is someone who's compassionate, caring, and doesn't care.
Well, I think she's still very much banged up from her her past emotionally. But she is comfortable. There's another woman who I had to write the story for her through the mom's lens. She had ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease.
Yep.
She was like, I don't know, she was very young. 2 kids, they're little kids.
Yep.
And at the end of her ordeal, she says to her mom, because she was a pastor, and I don't think it's because she was a pastor that she's going to say what I'm going to say, but she admitted, I had so many blessings because of this disease. Yeah, it's awful. It's crazy awful. But like, I met so many people cared for me. I was able to continue my work. She was, I wouldn't trade a thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, what? Like, if you could go back and erase your disease, she's like, I would not change anything that happened because of what I got out of it. Yeah. That blew me away too.
Yeah.
I was just like, I mean, if I could do anything to erase my dad's Alzheimer's, I would do it.
Yeah.
For anything except illegal and immoral. But I can't. So for her to say, have the grace and just to be like, it happened. It's awful, but my life was enriched because of it. Yeah. It's just extraordinary.
Well, I mean, your brother-in-law, one of my greatest inspirations, David Cooks. I mean, let's step on that one for a second. I mean, so David, when I met him through LinkedIn, he was a basketball coach, and he was promoting on LinkedIn through one of my mutual connections his book that he was releasing, From Paralysis to Purpose. And being a basketball coach, mindset, stupidity, I'm like, I wonder what this basketball coach, right? Yeah. Able-bodied basketball playing basketball coach went through to have this title of this book. I'll buy it. I buy the book, put it in my bag. Randomly, I'm reading it on the ferry ride out to Nantucket. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy became paralyzed at 14. Yeah. He was an avid basketball player, loved basketball, did everything for basketball, and went to lay in his bed and ended up having, becoming paralyzed for spinal aneurysm and being paralyzed for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Before ADA compliance, he was required in schools, and all this stuff was going on.
He went to college without ramps and all that other crap. Yeah.
Right. And so I get to meet him, and I get to spend time with him. And here I am on a Friday afternoon on a boat going out to Nantucket, and I sent him a message. I'm like, hey, I see you live in Wisconsin. I'm going to be in Madison on Sunday night. Do you want to do a podcast with me? And he's in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
I'm in Madison. It's an hour and a half drive, torrential downpour rain.
Yeah.
And he shows up, takes his wheelchair out of his car, comes into Starbucks, does a podcast, gets his wheelchair, goes back to his car, and the process of doing all of that is tough.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing, he doesn't have, nothing's easy every day,
No.
right? It really isn't. I mean, I had the honor to be able to pick him up. He was on the vineyard, and I was able to, and he was going to take a bus. I mean, he doesn't ask anybody for anything.
Right.
And I said, you're not taking a bus. I'm going to come down. I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to drive you to Boston. And that's a funny story all in itself.
I know. I'm offended you didn't call me.
I thought
I didn't even know he was in Massachusetts until you told me.
I thought I forgot one of the parts to his wheelchair because his wheelchair takes apart like 7 pieces.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah. And I'm driving for 3 hours and I'm nervous because I'm like, do I say something? Do you have the seat? Where is the seat? What if we don't have the seat? Oh my God, I can't believe this. Like, and meanwhile, he's got it the whole time. But when I talk to him, he's always just grateful.
Yeah.
He's always appreciative. He's always like, everything's a blessing. And it's like, he's that same, like these people that you put in these situations, they have that mindset and you're just going, huh.
It's hard to relate to sometimes, right?
Yeah. It's,
you and I are like complaining about, you know, a credit card debt or something. And he's wailing around. It's just such a different world, but to his credit, you just
perspective.
You either give up or you carry on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he carried, I mean, he had to at an early age, but yeah, he'll be in the, I think his mom is still alive. I have to do her for the next book. I have to interview her.
Yeah.
Because what?
So you're
what's
already
that like?
you're already working on a version 2.
Well, Josh's book,
Yeah.
Be Awesome, is next.
Yeah.
I've already promised you that. You're up next. But yeah, there's definitely going to be a volume 2. I think there's a lot. I got a lot of ideas. I'm thinking the CEO caregiver.
Yeah.
Just interviewing CEOs who've had to sort of balance their crazy schedule with caregiving. Maybe a celebrity version. There's definitely going to be a volume 2, if not more.
Man, it's crazy. I was just talking to someone that was telling me about a CEO that's a caregiver on the way in here.
Really?
For its kids, yeah.
Yeah, and
it's not that it's. In a lot of cases, it's not harder because many of them have the resources financially to do things that others might not be able to do. But there's the pressure of being a CEO for a company that has employees, that you're actually the caregiver for all of them to ensure that the paycheck's clear every 2 weeks. Yeah. And then you've got that personal side of, everything else.
I think people look at CEOs and go, oh my God, you make a ton of money.
Yeah.
They're really hard jobs.
Oh,
there are very few fluffy CEO positions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they're just grinding all the time. And I'm not saying anything judging or anything, but to add to that, taking care of your company, your employees, taking care of your own family, and then having that extra burden. It doesn't matter if you have the money and resources to outsource your caregiving. You can't outsource emotional burdens. Right. You just can't.
Right. That'll be cool. We're gonna get to me first. That's next.
Okay. You're on deck. Yeah.
Which that story 365 days ago. I don't know that we talked about this ever well, we didn't have the podcast afterwards. So we left that meeting, and you said we're gonna write every night, and I started writing. I probably wrote some pretty decent run-on sentences for you.
I said you're gonna write every day.
I'm gonna write every day. Yeah,
you are. Not me.
I'm gonna write every day. You need to block off time.
20 minutes.
Write every day. And write stories, think about things, and just put it together. Just put a bunch of words together, and then I'll help you kind of thread it all together. And we did that for like a month, and it was really a good exercise. But I know I'm not a writer. I'm a speaker, and it's different. And you have an art. You have a real talent. You have a passion for it, and I don't. And so I got around New Year's of last year, and I'm like, hey, why don't you just co-author this thing with me? And you take the brain and put the words, and we'll figure this thing out. And so that's where the delay has been, because we talked about I wanted to launch release the book on my
May 13th.
Anniversary, May 13th. Which May 13th is also your birthday.
No, on March 13th.
March 13th. March 13th was the day I almost died. I'm sorry.
Yes.
March 13th is your birthday, and the day again that connection.
Yeah.
March 13th was the day that I almost died, and that that's your birthday. And then there was a tie. I can't remember what it was, but March 13th, 2017, there was a tie between that day, your birthday and my death day. I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, there is a tie, and you have a bunch of May 13 ties.
Yeah.
Everything's a tie with you, which is I love it. I think it's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's back on your book is back. I wouldn't say it's back on the writing table just yet.
No, we got some stuff to do.
But we have a lot of prep to do.
Yeah.
And anticipation of that.
Yeah. So let's talk about a couple things. One, how do people get the book?
Mm-hmm. So this is a self-published book.
Yeah.
And I'll just give props to anybody to Amazon because they do make it very easy to self-publish.
Mm-hmm.
It's challenging to get published through a publisher.
Right.
It's challenging to find a literary agent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would be great if I could just call up an agent and say, hey, I need you to represent me. I need you to get me a publishing deal.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And I think people think self-publishing it's like, oh my God, like you just Xerox printer.
Yeah.
The Amazon self-publishing process is truly extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
None of these books are pre-printed. They're on demand.
Wow.
So if you order, you go to Amazon.
Yep.
You put in Greatest Burden, Greatest Blessing, or The Greatest Blessing, or just put Mark J. Resnick book into Amazon. My 2 books will come up. You'll order it, and they'll print it like the next night, and you'll have it within 2 or 3 days.
Fresh press.
It's crazy. and so which is cool with self-publishing. If we're right now we're finding all the mistakes in the book.
Yeah.
There's a couple typos, and so we're going to upload a new file, and then in a couple weeks it'll be a brand new book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same book, but the mistakes won't be there. So, anyways, long story short, go to Amazon.
Yeah.
Or you can go to caregivingguys.com. Caregivingguys.com.
All right, we'll put that in the show notes.
You can buy the book there, and you can buy my other book there, and you can also just kind of learn about some of the authors. We have author bios of everyone who wrote in the book if they submitted one.
Yeah.
I don't know if your mom has I think your mom has a bio. I'm not sure. I'll have to check that out.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
And I think there's a picture of my grandmother in one of the promotions.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a picture of my grandmother, which is a great honorarium for her. And she was alive my grandmother was still alive when my mother started or completed the story.
Yeah. She was.
Which was pretty good. Because it gives my mother something really to remember, in that tail end of stuff. So I'm grateful for that unintentional situation. I'm going to plug your business, your day job, so that you can hopefully get some business from that too.
Thank you.
Even though you're not asking for it.
No, I'm not.
But I'm going to, because that's what I do things like that. And you're going to correct any of the stuff that I'm wrong about, but if I'm close, don't call me a liar.
Let's hear it.
But you're almost, if not your whole career in the merchandising and promotion business. So to say that you are an expert in industry is an understatement. From personal experience, Mark has managed all of my Be Awesome. Anything that's been purchased that's got the Be Awesome logo on it has been made, manufactured, produced, or purchased by Mark. He's got access to millions of products. We did a really cool bourbon glass that had, I just wanted to have the Be Awesome logo on the outside of it. And he called and he said, this is why I love Mark for not just his, it's easy for you to call someone and say, hey, I want 150 shirts. It's hard to find someone that says, you call and say, hey, I want 150 shirts. And they say, awesome. Why don't we think about this, 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 or this? Or this is something that's really cool. He did something amazing. He had an engraving of Tika, the essential elements to kicking ass, in the bottom of the glass. I never saw anything like it before. But Mark is a merchandise and promotions expert, unbelievable turnaround time, expertise, quality product. Nobody better in the business. And I've worked with a number, and there's some good ones that I've worked with, but Mark is the most awesome one. So if you have any needs, for an event, for ongoing, you just did a big order of pint glasses, customized pint glasses, but personalized stuff, anything that you just knock it out of the park. And I thank you for doing that for me. And furthermore, how do they reach you for that?
That's a great question. Because there's lots of ways to do that. I would say the best way to do that would be email.
Yeah. So
we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
But it's mresnick.
Yeah.
At AmericanBus.com. American BUS.
Yeah. Awesome.
There's too many others.
Yep.
ways to go about
Yep.
it.
M. Resnick at AmericanBus.com.
Yeah,
you will not regret it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
You do some awesome stuff, and I'm looking forward to the next 365 days.
I don't want to tease it, but there's some changes coming to the Be Awesome website. I've been talking to my digital marketing team.
You've been on me for this. It's got my doing that too.
Yeah, we've got some improvements.
Yeah,
I can't tell you when it's going to happen, but check back soon. The Be Awesome website will be
phenomenal.
Have some updates.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for being here. You're going to be on the next episode with me that'll air at some point later or before this episode. So in the meantime, we appreciate any 5-star ratings and reviews, shares, comments. If we don't deserve the 5-star rating review, call me, email me, 508-238-5711, or email josh@beawesome.com. We love the opportunity to earn your 5-star rating and review, but that is what helps build our audience, gets our ratings. We're currently in the top 3% of all podcasts, and there's a lot of podcasts out there, so to be in the top 3% is awesome. So until the next time, if you can be anything, be awesome. Have a great day, everybody.
Coming to you from underneath a peach blossom, it's time for an episode of Be Awesome. Find positivity throughout your life and work, just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.